Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. You're listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1490 WGCH, and after tomorrow, we're going to be on 1590 WPSL. So what's going on in the world? The Fed ships off another $100 billion to bail out the banks. In Europe, compliments of you, the taxpayer. Beppe, who finished very strongly in the Italian election, well, you got to take a look at his video. Non-farm payrolls look like they're doing so incredibly well, and the yen and the pound continue to plummet. What does it all mean? What does it mean to you? What difference does it make in your life? Well, here's Andy Hoffman to explain. Welcome back, Andy.
Well, thanks for having me again. Lots to say on a Monday.
Yeah, so Fed ships off $100 billion to the banks in Europe to keep them from crashing, and nothing to see here, just move along.
Yeah, that's $100 billion now, plus several hundred billion before. And don't forget, before we had the OMT over in Europe, the outright monetary transactions, we had the LTRO with the long-term refinancing operations. And before we had that, we had the, quote, Fed swap agreement, which was simply a way that the Fed could print money and send it off to Europe without counting it as debt because they count it as a swap, AKA derivative accounting. So basically, here we are with Europe showing its worst economic numbers of the entire crisis. And I'm talking about going all the way back to the beginning of the euro in 1999. And clearly the banks are desperate for more money, and we're just printing more of it.
Hey, well, if they need it, let's give it to them, right? Because what's the alternative is a worldwide global economic collapse. It's obvious they wouldn't be giving these European banks the money if it didn't mean that these derivatives weren't blowing up and continue to blow up and bring the whole system down with them.
Yeah, and the problem with the ECB is because there's so many parties contributing to the ECB meetings, interest from Germany to Italy to France to Scandinavia, they can't get things done. They can't just print money like in a moment's notice like the Fed can, and that's why they just use the Fed as their partner in crime.
Yeah, and don't forget that because people don't know what to do, they're shipping their money over to the U.S. because it seems stable, even though it's not. And then what happens? It's crazy. More inflation, but the money's coming over. So in order to convert euros to dollars, they got to print more dollars because the European banks have a shortage of dollars for some reason that I don't understand, except that they're losing boatloads of money on their derivatives portfolios. It's the only real explanation. So.
And the mortgage market, because real estate is still falling in Europe. I mean, it's falling very hard. And, I just read an article today that says 40% of Germans aged 40 to 49 want out of the euro. 40%. And then, of course, you have Merkel's own people saying that Greece is going to have to leave. And as we talked about, Beppe Grilli in Italy, well, actually, he and the other two guys, Berlusconi and Bersani, who got 80% of the vote cumulatively, they all want an end to austerity, which pretty much means they want no part of what the European bankers are telling them what to do.
Yeah, which is a little bit strange because the political thing is nobody wants to cut back. Nobody wants to admit what's really happening, the collapse of the system. And somehow they think if we go back to the lira, everything's going to be fine. Happy days are here again. But they're going to have tremendous inflation and eventually hyperinflation and a collapse.
But ultimately, it's the right thing to do. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
easy solution. This is how it ends. You build up this kind of debt. I mean, just take any person in real life. If someone makes $20,000 a year and they build up $500,000 of debt, there's no easy way out of it. I mean, you're going to have a default and pain. But the fact is, they need to get out of this system. And it's like ripping the Band-Aid off. They have to rip the Band-Aid off. They're going to go through terrible pain. The whole world is going to go through pain, but it's the smarter solution than letting the bubble build up and be an even bigger implosion.
It's really the only solution, because letting the bubble build up is not a solution. It's like, do you go for surgery, or do you just hope for the best and whistle on past the cemetery? That's what it really comes down to. So
that's the whole kicking the can thing. And of course, it's not the people who decide about the kicking the can. It's been these bankers, like from the ECB and the Fed and the politicians like the Obama administration and Merkel, who have been making the decisions for the people. And now the people are starting to make the decisions on their own. That's why first you had the election in France last year, which clearly it didn't go the way that the Holland told people it would, and everyone knew it wouldn't. But the fact is, people are voting, that they want to spend money as opposed to listen to what the banks have said. Then in Greece, where the anti-austerity people almost won last year, and clearly, if they had an election today, they would. Now you have this election in Italy, and there are elections in Germany later this year, which are going to be shocking to the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then we go down and we see that this latest non-farm payroll report, not exactly what it would appear on its surface.
Right. Well, in the past, we would have said things like that, like, yeah, it doesn't appear like it's on the surface. But now it's gotten to the point where I think the entire world realizes that it's comical at best. I mean, of all people, it was ironic that Jack Welch was the first person to bring it into public, because no one's more famous for manipulating earnings numbers than Jack Welch. And,
well, that was good business.
Beating by a penny. And of course, his comments now are because he's clearly, a Republican guy. And, but the fact is, of course, it's true, that the unemployment rate starts plummeting right before the election. And now these numbers really just took the cake. And I mean, it was really beyond belief to see them now showing. If you look at the numbers, full-time employment fell dramatically last month. Part-time employment went up. So they're counting part-time jobs now as jobs. It's really remarkable. And I was reading John Williams of Shadow Stats, the stuff he puts out this weekend, where he dissects it. I mean, it's remarkable how they revise things and how there's literally no comparability of these numbers to prior periods. How they, if you recall, they just reduced last month's amazing number from 160 to 117. And last month they revised every number from last year. So, yeah. I mean, why anyone is even paying attention to this stuff at all is beyond me at this point.
Hey, and who was it that I had on the shows talking about? Oh, it was, what's his name? Charles Biederman. You know him?
You had him on the show?
Yeah, many times.
Oh, great.
And
great.
He's talking about the statistics that if they want the employment statistics, all they got to do is go to the FICA computer, look at everybody's 941s that get filed, and actually now in most states you have to file a report when you hire a new employee. They can get the data real time. All these numbers is a survey that's slanted, that's manipulated. So if they really wanted to tell you the truth, they just have to go from one computer to the other, add up the numbers, and you got it. But they don't want to tell you the truth. That's what it comes down to. Speaking of which, what's with the whistleblower going against Barrick?
All right. Everyone needs to listen to this. My good friend Sean at SGT Report.
Our good friend.
He just put a podcast out yesterday on Sunday. The guy's name is Jorge Leo Candia. He's a Chilean miner who for many, many years has been in a legal dispute with Barrick over the Chilean portion of the Pascua Lama deposit, which is 18 years in the making.
Yeah.
And it's very, very compelling. I think it's pretty obvious from listening to him that in some way, shape, or form, he's telling the truth. And look, I mean, I just wrote a piece that'll be out later this week called Evil Personified about Barrick Gold. I mean, they have a history of doing things that are contrary to shareholders and, frankly, to the entire gold community. And this bears watching because, remember, Barrick, not only is the cost up to $8.5 billion and they're 10, 15 years late, but they've already sold a quarter of all the silver to Silver Wheaton. And if they can't get into production, they're going to have to pay that back. Plus, there are hedges out on a lot of the gold from Pascua-Lama and this lawsuit. I mean, this could really bankrupt the company. And I don't think there's a company on earth that deserves it more outside the banking sector.
Well, you got your pick of a lot of different ones if you're talking about who deserves to go bust, because, forget it.
Hey, they were sued, Barrick and JP Morgan, co-defendants, for manipulating the gold price, and they admitted that they did it. They said we were agent of the government.
Sovereign immunity, right.
Yeah, back in 2003 or 4, and they ultimately settled it. These are very bad people who had a very, very long history of destroying gold mining companies and investors, let alone fostering the whole fiat bubble that's destroyed so many lives around the world.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, you think, well, keeping the gold price down, keeping the silver price down, it's just us investors who are getting screwed. But you and I know we're buying it, and you should be buying it for insurance of your wealth, not you're buying money. You're not buying an investment. But think of all the miners around the world for the past 40 years, going back to the London gold pool, who've gotten screwed because they've artificially suppressed the price of metals and the standards of living that have been cut around the world because of this conspiracy.
Yeah, and the people in these countries that own the precious metals. But I mean, I was listening to a roundtable yesterday. It was also on Zero Hedge. Who's Peter Schiff, John Maudlin, Maudlin is just a complete ass, Rick Rule, and some guy named Grant Williams. And this Grant Williams, who I never heard of before, he's going, which I've heard this a million times before. Well, I don't care if they smash it. In fact, I hope it goes down so I could buy more. It's like, you've been talking about this for 10 years. How much more do you want to own? And more importantly, don't you realize that by suppressing the price, the world is being destroyed? All the crap that we're watching, all the debt that's been built up, all the jobs that have been lost, all the currency wars that have been going on is because of the suppression of the price. And you're worried about whether you could buy a couple of extra ounces. I want to punch people when I hear that. It's just the dumbest possible. In fact, on top of that, Gada was just writing about that, about this people saying, well, I hope it stays longer so I could buy more. It's like, some people are not going to live to enjoy the fruits of labor. They mentioned Adrian Douglas, our good, right? Adrian Douglas, sure. our good friend who just died. He was a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Peter George, another guy who's from Gada who just died last week. Ferdinand Lips. These guys, they were leaders of this movement, and they all died. And I'd like reality to hit sometime in my lifetime. You know what I'm saying?
It's going to. I mean, look, let's face it. We're getting towards the end game here. I mean, we've been there for a while, and all we see that the solutions that they put forward, the elite, is just desperation. It's, like the proverbial Dutch boy with his finger in the dike, except, you've got hundreds of leaks springing all over the place, and you got the plumber, the plunge protection team out there trying to plug them all. And yeah, it's worked okay up to now. You could debate its effectiveness, but let's face it,
Well, its effectiveness has been in kicking the can. I mean, that's, their only tools left are, as I say, money printing, market manipulation, and propaganda. They're, as you say, they're not solutions. They are literally just trying to push things off as far as they can. And, Bill Holter put out a piece today called Price Follows Volume, saying, well, if the market is so great, how come we're hitting decade-long lows in volume today? Obviously, it's not the public buying. It's obviously the PPT and the likes that are in it. It's much easier to manipulate something that has low volume. And, what has the highest volume these days? It's gold and silver, because there's massive, massive buying being offset, real buying being offset by massive paper shorting. And ultimately, it's the real stuff that always wins every time.
It's the real thing, like the 3 silver coins I got in my pocket. There's no substitute for them, and that's what you always have to remember, which means in the final analysis, things are definitely spinning more out of control. I I mean, look, that $100 billion is so telling that they had to send in a quote-unquote swap to the ECB, to the European banks, to bail them out yet again. And, you know, it's just going to go into the trillions. Eventually it has to stop. And we see signs of really ominous movements in the yen and the pound right now. They're plummeting.
I mean, I wrote about this Friday afternoon, so it'll be out this afternoon. The yen is now down almost 25% in the last 3 months. Okay, people? Tokyo has been the most expensive city in the world for the past 6 years, even though the government of Japan insists that they have deflation, the most expensive city on earth. And now they've just dropped the yen by 25% in a matter of 3 months, which means explosive inflation coming to the Japanese. And this is at a time where their economy's at the worst and the demographics are starting to kick in. And oh, by the way, it just makes the currency wars get worse. You should Google my piece, The Final Currency War. And then the pound, you know, London has been in the top 5 of the most expensive cities in the world forever. The pound is now down 10% in the past month alone. 10% more costs for all the British people care of printing money.
Yeah, well, it'll be great for their exports, though, right? And we do care so much about their exports.
Yeah, but it's I mean, against us, you know, I mean, they need to get the currency to go down against the Japanese yen, not us.
Yeah,
and that's why there'd be a currency war with the Japanese on their side. I mean, the British have already said we're going to not let them beat us in the currency wars, and now you're hearing talk from the Swiss about it and from the Germans. The Chinese are threatening the Japanese with it right now. You think it's not going to escalate? Of course it will.
Yeah, well, let's hope it stays. The war sticks to the currencies, and we don't get a hot war as a result of it, because countries have gone to war for less.
Well, that's what Gerald Celente is betting on, and you know he's the top trends forecaster.
Yeah, he's been right too many times in the past to just write him off. You know.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's his face, Netanyahu? He was just elected on a platform of attacking Iran. And now that he's very loudly talking about it. Then you got North Korea, we threatening them now. You got Syria, you got Egypt on the brink of financial collapse. I mean, there's so many hotspots out there. And the more that inflation, rises around the world, the more the odds are something breaks out. And that's exactly what you're seeing now. Currency wars, money printing, and inflation.
Yeah. And we know the end of this. The story's been told many times in the past. Nothing good's going to come of it. But on that note, just go buy gold and silver. Don't bother reading the papers. Just read what Andy and Bill and I have to say, because it's just too aggravating. And they're lying through their teeth, the mainstream media. Complete lies. So just remember, stick with the strategy, ignore the noise, and you'll be okay.
Agreed.
All right. Well, till next week. We'll talk with you again soon, and let's see what new ways they come up with to try to fool us for the next week, right?
Yep.
Because they got to come up with something. They wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't.
Well, it's about maintaining the status quo, and they will, like rats trapped in a corner, they will fight to the death, but they will die.
Or rats in a tenement fire,
Yep.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Bye. Fortuna Silver Mines is now a show sponsor. Under President and CEO Jorge Ganoza, it's quickly becoming a world-class silver producer with 2 operating mines and extensive property holdings in silver-rich Peru and Mexico that will help fuel future growth. Started in 2005, it's gone from just 5 employees to over 1,500 today, while keeping its commitment to social and environmentally responsible operations. As of the third quarter of 2012, they've hit 80% of anticipated silver production of 3.7 million ounces and 94% of expected gold production of 17,400 ounces. By mid-2013, the production rate forecast is 5 million ounces of silver and 26,000 ounces of gold. Fortuna is currently seeking accretive M&A opportunities in the Americas. Fortuna is a proven winner with rapidly rising production into the foreseeable future. Their ticker symbol is FSM on the New York Stock Exchange and FVI on the TSX. For more information, click on their logo link on financialsurvivalnetwork.com or go to fortunasilver.com. Join Fortuna Silver Mine's record of outstanding success.